like very much to travel and to see new places, and it's difficult to pick one favorite, but for sure that there are many places in Europe that are among my favorite places.
Right. I can tell you a little bit about my favorite place. It's actually in Brazil, and it's called Porto Seguro. And I saw that you are a member of a board of a school in Porto Seguro. How come?
Oh, very, very good pick, very good choice. This school that I'm a board member, that is, it's an educational foundation, Fundação Visconde de Porto Seguro. It's one of the best schools in Sao Paulo, and it's acknowledged as a quality German school outside of Germany. So my daughters, they study English, Spanish, and German as well. And this acknowledgement is from the German Ministry of Education. So it's very, very interesting. It's based in Sao Paulo, even though it has the name of Porto Seguro. It is based in Sao Paulo, and it's a very interesting entity because not only hosts private schools, but hosts a public school for for more than 1,000 students of low class in the southern zone of Sao Paulo. So they have the private school, and they also have a public school for low class people, but with the same quality of the private school, which is something that is quite unique in Brazil.
How often do you go there to Porto Seguro, and do you also combine business with some leisure, because there are so nice beaches at the coast of the ocean?
Yes, for sure, for sure. In the recent years, I've been more frequently to Praia do Forte, which is northern in Bahia. Porto Seguro is in the south of Bahia. But in the recent years, oftentimes I've been to Praia do Forte, that is 1 hour from Salvador. And by the way, I was there until last Saturday because now it's summer vacation for us. And it's also very nice. It's also very nice. We are fortunate. We have 8,000 kilometers of coast here in Brazil. So, but Bahia, Porto Seguro, Arraial da Ajuda, Trancoso, Praia do Forte, the Bahia coastline is definitely my favorite in Brazil.
Right, I absolutely agree. It's so brilliant place to go for a vacation. It's amazing. I remember when we hired the car at the hotel in Porto Seguro, it was like in an adventure movie. So there was no GPS available, and we got lost. The roads were narrow. We tried to find a golf course. We knew the approximate place where it should be, but we were not sure where we are going. The sugar canes started to be above our heads, but when we got to the golf course, it was amazing. It's absolutely breathtaking, and the place is I really recommend also to go.
Is the golf course in the top of a cliff that is Trancoso? Probably that is near Porto Seguro.
Yes, that's on the coast of the ocean. That's
yes.
That's absolutely amazing place to go. And since my trip to Brazil, I've started to listen more to some Brazilian music, like Ludmilla, Anitta's. Really enjoyed Brazilian Caipirinhas. If anyone has not tried, check the recipes on the net, worth trying. What comes to your mind as world-class representatives of Brazilian culture, literature, movies?
Well, for sure, Caipirinha is one of our, let's say, ambassadors here. Our joke here is that after 2 caipirinhas, anyone can speak Portuguese.
Not me,
But
not me.
but I believe that part of what we are, I think that when people think about Brazil, they think always oftentimes about football. That is, of course, very important here. It's rare to find someone that doesn't support a team here in Brazil. So we say that football here is almost like a religion because everyone
Mm.
has its own, let's say, team. And many people think about the carnival as well. But I dare to say that in our day by day, we have much more than that. I think we have a very important environmental base. Unfortunately, our government now, this government is not doing great on environmental side, but I believe that is one of the key contributions to the world as the is exactly our strength in the environmental side. So we hope that this last year, I think the government started to realize that they cannot, they could not continue doing what they were doing the first 2 years. That was letting things go too loose without controlling, and they started um, uh, to let's say start with a bit of control again. Not enough, not enough. I recognize that it's not enough, but let's hope that this year we have presidential elections, and we hope that the new government will give more importance to the environmental side. Brazil is a big exporter of commodities. It's the number one exporter of producer and exporter of animal protein in the world. If you consider not only meat but also pork and chicken, we are very important player in the commodities field in general, metals and food process, meat, not only meat, but also soybeans, coffee, um, corn. We are very strong in the agricultural side. And by the way, with all these years of crisis with COVID and so on, this part of commodities didn't suffer the effects of of the COVID, because the crop in the fields, people continue to work in the crops, and in the mines as well. Mines continue to work. So it's a very strong area in Brazil. And in terms of music, I believe that Brazil is very well represented by what we call Bosa Nova rhythm. That oftentimes I'm in the other side of the world, and all of a sudden in a lobby of a hotel, in a restaurant, I started to listen to Brazilian Bossa Nova songs like Tom Jobim, um, and it's very interesting. And when I was in Thailand, for example, in one of the restaurants that I was, they were playing bossa nova all the time. So even though people think more about samba when thinking about Brazil, the fact is that in practice, I think bossa nova is much more popular worldwide rather than samba. Samba is much more to listen locally, let's say, but while bossa nova is definitely something more international.
Yeah, I can fully relate to that. I checked on Spotify. the number of listens is impressive to Bosa Nova. It's like tens and hundreds of millions of people. So it's huge audience. And what you said about the market, I also have one of my largest clients as one of the Russian companies supplying the raw products to Brazil as their biggest market. So I see that they are doing really good nowadays as well, and so yeah, it looks like if you're not in the suffering business line, then basically the others are doing pretty good. And to conclude your sort of my personal questions to you, can you mention some hobbies? Do you have any? I cannot imagine that you have time for any, but maybe you do.
Yeah, yes, I do have a hobby, and my hobby is gardening. I was told by my doctor that it was important to have some time, let's say, away from the mobile phone, away from thinking about, let's say, day by day things. And I'm not able to meditate, but I can stay for an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, taking care of the plants. So the doctor said that this is a good replacement for meditation, for you to let's say, free a little bit your mind in the weekends. And besides that, I have two daughters. I have one daughter of 16 years old, and the other daughter is 11 years old. And spending quality time with them is something that I also praise a lot.
Yeah, that's precious time to spend. I have 14 and 10, so and 3-year-olds at home, and then yeah, I can imagine they take suck all your free time, whatever they can, and that's good. About your garden, do you have any Japanese plants as well?
I am not. I wasn't able so far of doing this, let's say, something like a Japanese garden. I wasn't able to do that. I haven't reached that stage. But my grandfather used to have a lot of orchids. So orchids is something that I like very much to take care here. And also there is a small berry called jabuticaba that is particularly a berry that you can only find in Brazil. And I have 2 jabuticaba trees to have fun here at home. So even though I live in an apartment, I live in the top floor, so I have an open space. I can have a lot of plants here.
Yeah. So our listeners, if you are meeting Anna and wonder what kind of flowers to present, now you know what Anna likes.
Very
So
good.
then, speaking of your business, 17 years at Big Four and largest law firms. Why did you make the jump from a financially secure place to your own business?
It wasn't it wasn't an easy decision, especially because after so many years. It was 17 years at Tosini Freire, but before Tosini, I started my career in the former Coopers and Lybrand. I spent 4 years there, and then I moved to another leading law firm called Matos Filho for other 4 years, and then I joined Tosini for 17 years. So it was a large time in the big corporations, let's say, the big structures, always in the, let's say, in the advisory side, not in a working in a corporate and in a company. It was a difficult decision because I used to like a lot Tosini. I used to like a lot my work. But anyway, uh, as the head of tax, I was much more involved in bureaucratic things rather than client matters. I had so many lawyers to coordinate, and I was one of the partners in charge for the institutional representation of the firm, not only representation of the tax area, but also of the firm as a whole. And and in the big structures, I think depending on your position, it's harder for you to follow all the steps of client work, depending on on your position, on the model of the business. And in my case, I was missing being a lawyer. I think that I was so much in the management side. Not that I don't like management, the management side, but I definitely enjoy much more being a lawyer, being with the client. And it was a time in which my oldest daughter was starting to be a teenager as well. And she had some issues at school uh, with uh, with bullying, and so I thought that I needed to work in a different model. I needed to have more time with the family, and working in a boutique. It's interesting because I have, of course, much less management burden. It's much more risk for sure, but I have less management burden. I thought that when I left the firm, that I wouldn't work in transactions anymore because most of transactions are dealt by big firms. And I was okay with this because I've worked in transactions all my professional life so far. But in being a boutique, oftentimes I've been called to work as a counsel in a transaction, working in planning the transaction or the post acquisition, but not anymore in the due diligence part, in the closing and the negotiation, things that are in a big firm you have all the time, and it's so much pressure for you to finish everything in such a short time. So I have less, not that I don't have pressure of time, but I think it's a different pressure. It's something that I can manage much more. And also I can, one thing that I never gave up was the academic part. But when you are in when I was in a big firm, I needed to, I used to spend so much time in the management side that for me to dedicate to the academic and to client work, I needed to stay at the firm until 10 p.m. work, frequently work during the weekend. So in my new model, I work a lot for sure, but I work a lot in things that I believe that are the things that I like the most, that are the academic side, that are the client work.
Right. Yeah, these are, of course, the move was before the pandemics, but I think also the pandemics showed to many people, they opened their eyes that there are much more than business going around, and people much more started to think how to really have this work-life balance. And it seems that you did this even before the crisis hit. Are you now happy with how the things sorted out in your own law firm, and is the what kind of work you are handling now. So this is what you expected?
I believe that it's even more than what I expected, because um, the acknowledgement we have from the market, it was much more than I was expecting. I thought that we would need much more time to ramp up with the new business, because it was a brand new firm. But many of the clients that we used to work with at Tosini, they decided to come with me, working in parallel with Tosini in other areas, or even working in four hands with Tosini. That was very nice. And we also managed to continue working for the families, because we have a tax practice that dedicates to both companies and let's say high net worth families. And at the time that I left, Tosini was no longer interested in working with the high net worth family, because this was another area that I used to chair, to co-chair at Tosini. So I was allowed to bring let's say, the families with me. At the same time, I continued to work with a number of multinational groups that I was working there, and also developed new relationships with multinational groups that Tosini didn't work. And most of my work is related to international tax aspects. I believe that we are acknowledged as one of the, let's say, one of the powerhouses for, even though we are a small boutique, but one of the powerhouses for international tax matters out of the big firms, because of course that in the big firms they have capacity to deal with the international tax matters. And so, and with all of this, we saw also our peers acknowledging us as well, because it's as important as you, it is very important to have the client acknowledgement, but also the market acknowledgement, that are your peers, people that know about the subject, and even knowing, they think that you are good in what you do. So with the academic side, we take the opportunity of being also in contact with our peers, with our colleagues. So I believe that the acknowledgements we've been having is because of the client work, because of the contact that we have with the market, with the peers through the academic side. And in the family, in the private client side, we are in the referral list of all the major private bankers that operate with Brazilian clients, which give us, would make us very, very proud. So I'm very happy with the outcome so far.
Right. And it's interesting, your web page starts with a sentence that tax is our passion. Is there something in your processes how you implement this statement, and what is your personal passion from all the tax fields?
My passion for tax is because we as tax practitioners, we are not, we cannot know only tax law, because if I'm going to analyze the taxation of a certain transaction in the financial markets, I need to understand the transaction per se. I need to understand what type of instruments the parties are using, so that I can assess what can be the tax implication. If I'm speaking about taxation on M&A transactions, I need to understand the transactions. I need to know how to read well a financial statements, even though you don't need to be an accountant, but you need to have a very good knowledge of accountancy, of corporation law, of banking regulations. So I think we are, what I like in the tax area is that we are always learning. We are always being challenged to know beyond the tax law, because the tax law per se, of course, that here in Brazil is very complicated, but it's the tax law per se is not enough to understand the tax. What is the implication of the tax law in the real world? So, and this is for anything that we are going to analyze in tax. If you're thinking about tax on trade, you need to know what are the characteristics, what is the specifics of the market. Tax on energy sector. If you don't understand the energy sector, at least you have a very good understanding, you will probably miss something on that. So what fascinates me in tax is that we are always challenged to go beyond, to understand what is the business, what is the situation, and not only understand what is happening, but understand a little bit of the regulations for us to know exactly how it works and what can be the tax implications. So that's why we say that tax is our passion. It's because it's always challenging. Of course, that Brazil is known as one of the most complicated tax systems. But anyway, I think this is true in anywhere in the world. You cannot say what is the applicable taxation if you don't understand what is the specific situation that you're dealing with.
Mm. Brilliantly said. One of my gurus I follow is Seth Godin, and he says that every business needs to find an edge, how it can be different. And he speaks of this purple cow that every business needs to think of how they are different from the others. Have you found your purple cow? What works best for you? How to differentiate from others?
Yes, what I think it's really different with what you do is that we try to please the client uh, with of course as other firms with very good service to the client, but most of all we have a very conservative approach in such a way that what we offer to clients is secure positions that you know exactly what is the risk. Because what I see in the tax market in Brazil is that sometimes tax practitioners, they want to please the client, saying the client what the client wants to listen, wants to hear, but not necessarily making the client knowledgeable about all the potential risks. And all of a sudden, our tax authorities are very aggressive. So when it comes to tax inspection, they said, well, no one ever said to me that I could have problems with that. And we try to differentiate ourselves, being very transparent with the client, oftentimes saying things that the client doesn't want us to say, but because it's necessary to say. So, I think this approach creates long-term relationships, and these long-term relationships makes, let's say, each client let's say a sustainable business for the firm itself, because I know I can count that this client, whenever this client has a demand on anything related to tax, they are going to look for us exactly because of this approach of being very transparent to say what we need to say and not what the client wants to listen.
Right, and this creates the trust from the client's perspective. If you are honest to the bottom.
Yes, of course that sometimes you have clients that are not really happy with your answer in the beginning. But if this is what you really believe from a technical perspective, I do stand for it and let the client knows what can be the consequences if he moves forward with something that you are not advising.
Mm. Another question I wanted to ask about your business is that I saw that you are very active on Instagram. What is your feedback on using the Instagram for business promotion purposes? Do you use also some other social platforms actively, and what works best for your business promotion?
I personally, well, let's say the firm itself has its social media accounts, and for the firm, it's mostly institutional for institutional representation, much more than raising new businesses. The platform that works best to raise new business is definitely LinkedIn, because it's really let's say the business driven platform, and I personally
Sorry, which one?
use LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I personally use the Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Mm-hmm. And out of when we had this 2017 IFA Congress in Brazil, I was in charge of the marketing part of the Congress. And one of the things that I learned at that time was the difference between among the publics in each of the platforms. So, in terms of business generation, I do believe that either in my personal accounts and business and the firm accounts is the one that may generate business is definitely LinkedIn. But it's important in Instagram. I personally use to show not only the professional side, but a little bit of a personal side, because in the, let's say, in the business, we see each other so seriously, always speaking about serious things and so on. So I believe that the social media is a manner of, if you manage well, of showing a little bit of your of the other side that in the day-by-day people are not doesn't have don't have the opportunity of seeing. And I also like very much to use, and this is Instagram and Facebook. I keep my Facebook because if you look at people above, let's say 55, 60 years old, they are more familiar with Facebook. And Facebook is, let's say, a democratic platform. You find people from, let's say, of all ages. Mm-hmm. And but I like very much the Twitter. We have a hashtag of text Twitter. When we have the IFA Congresses, we have a meeting of text tweeters. And in this hashtag text tweeters, you can find many of the leading international tax practitioners. Rita de la Feria, for example, is part of the group that is always meeting in the text Twitter.
She's very active there.
Yes, in the text Twitter group when we have IFA congresses. I think that the Twitter, at the same time that there is a lot of, let's say, funny or nonsense stuff. In terms of taxes, it's very useful for tax practitioners because you have their let's say multilateral agencies posting there, sometimes posting more than in LinkedIn, governments, universities, they use a lot of Twitter. So I like to, each of the platforms has its own upsides and downsides, and I like to use these four. Uh, I couldn't start using yet the TikTok. It's too, then I think I'm too old for TikTok. But other than that, these other four platforms I use a lot.
Yeah, this TikTok is already the next level. So
Yeah.
I also cannot push myself to that limit yet. But I will definitely check your social media accounts, and I encourage everyone else who is listening to this podcast to do the same as well. And for those who are interested, the at least the Instagram account is called Utumi Law. So check this out, and we will maybe in some of the next episodes can discuss some more about this fascinating topic. I'm also a big fan of actually Twitter. This looks to be more sort of active and a lot of information you can get from there as well. As our podcast is called Tax Stories, maybe you have some story prepared for me as well.
It's very some interesting stories that we do have here. I think one of my favorite stories, let's say in the tax arena, is my PhD in tax. I was when I was preparing my PhD thesis, I was pregnant of my oldest daughter, and I was in the middle of the due diligence of one of the largest brewery companies here in Brazil called Kaiser. At the time, it was the FEMSA group that was buying Kaiser. Nowadays, Kaiser is part of Heineken Group, so it was already. But it was the when FEMSA bought a Kaiser from Molson Group. Molson was the seller, FEMSA was the buyer, and we finished the meeting, a very intense due diligence meeting with Kaiser, looking at the points that we raised, getting explanations and so on, at 9 p.m. And we were supposed to restart at 9 a.m. the next day. But in the next day, I entered in, I started to have, my daughter wanted to be born with 7 months. So I needed to rush to the hospital. I stayed there for 3 days, and then my daughter was born with 7 months instead of 9. And now nobody says that she was born premature. And one thing that we say is that, well, between the incubator and the meetings of my mom, I'd rather be in the incubator. That's why she ran away with 7 months. And she stayed for 8 months at the hospital. And then when she left, when we could get her home, I also had my PhD thesis to finish. So during the other months of my maternity leave, a part of taking care of her, I finished my PhD thesis, and months later, I was approved in the panel. So it was a combination of I was in the middle of a big due diligence. I was, uh, and she was born premature, but nowadays, as she's, nobody says she's much taller than me. She's so healthy. Nobody says that she was born premature. So our joke with her is that she decided to run away from my meetings.
Wow, what a story! This is really a nice story to demonstrate the complexity of the tax world that people are able to juggle with three big balls at the same time: family, due diligence, and PhD. And those balls are really big and important. So it's a great story. Thank you for sharing. I have a small story for you as well. I read in the book of which is written by our guests from the one of the previous tax story episodes, Joel Slamrod and Michael Keane, that in their book they wrote that in 2015 prosecutors in Brazil launched an investigation into allegations that tax officials solicited bribes to reduce major companies' tax liabilities, with estimated losses to the treasury put at 6.1 billion over 15 years, 6.1 billion USD. This amount is really breathtaking comparing to the major stories of we had, for example, Bill Broder as our guest in one of the tax stories episodes. He told about tax fraud in Russia. About the amount was around 230 million USD. And then there was an episode in Denmark where the withholding tax was defrauded also for a similar amount, but this is nothing comparable to this 6.1 billion. Do you know what is the story behind? How was it possible for such big amounts and for so long time? And is there a continuation to this story? Maybe some results of the investigation? Are you familiar with this?
Yes, it was this was an investigation that was conducted in the administrative tax court, because here, when you have a tax assessment, you can litigate in the administrative sphere that is within the Ministry of Economy. Is a court that is part of the Ministry of Economy. And if you win, it's a definite decision. The tax authorities cannot appeal in the judicial courts, but if you lose, you can appeal to the judicial courts. So because and there is no necessity of guarantees, and this administrative court, it suspends the tax debt. So everybody, when there is a tax assessment, we always go to the administrative sphere before going to the judicial courts. And what was discovered was that there were some few, let's say few, in the we had more than 200 judges in this court, because you have we used to have panels of 6 judges at that time. Now it's a panel of 8 judges, but we used to have a panels of 6 judges. So we used to have more than 200 judges. Out of these 200 judges, there were less than 10 of them that were that they used to have a very good reputation. Nobody thought that they could be they could be working, let's say, under bribe, because they were let's say influencers in their chambers. And these guys they were paid to, let's say, to influence the other judges to vote in favor of a certain of certain companies.
Wow.
So, but it was very bad for the court as a whole, because it came to the impression that the court per se was all dirty, let's say, while we had, like in, let's say, in many different countries in the world, few people in the public service that are not reliable. And but I think that this was good in a certain way, because it forced the government to remodel the court. So they remodel with more judges. So each panel, each chamber now has 8 judges instead of 6. And we have what we call superior chamber of tax appeals. That is when you have decisions of similar cases being decided differently. In the lower chamber, you get the case to the higher level. In the higher level, we have 10 judges. So it made more difficult for someone to have so much strength and to influence a number of judges enough to make a favorable decision. And besides, they created a system in which whoever goes to the court needs to have full dedication, because before this reform of the administrative court, you could continue being a lawyer and work as a judge, and you could not judge the cases that you or your firm was involved. It was only the point of you declaring a conflict of interest, but other than that, it was fine. And now the judges there are fully dedicated to the court, and they can, in parallel, what they can have is the academic work. So they can be professors, they can give lectures, but they can, and even from the tax authorities, because the tribunal is formed by 50% representatives referred by the taxpayers and 50% referred by the tax authorities. And within the tax authorities, we used to have members of the court that had a second position in the tax administration. So I think that this system of being fully dedicated was an improvement, because then they can, each of them can really be neutral in terms of what they are analyzing and for them to judge. And most of the cases in which it was identified any sort of problem, they decided to judge the cases again. So there were few cases in which the statute of limitation didn't allow a new judgment, but there were a number of cases that they judged again. Surprisingly, some of the cases were good cases in terms of merit. So the court upheld the first decision, but out of the 6 billion that was said that was the loss, it wasn't really 6 billion, because half of them were good cases. So the companies the taxpayers that bribed the judges didn't need to do that, because they had very good cases at hand. And 50% were cases in which the decisions were reverted by the court, reverted the decisions, and eventually these cases are either settled by the taxpayers, or the taxpayers are continuing to litigate under judicial courts. And the judges that were involved in these cases are being persecuted. Some of them got arrested in the first place, but our courts here, they have the understanding that you can only stay in jail after you being convicted in the last instance.
Mm.
So unless you are, let's say, causing troubles to investigation, you are harassing the victims, unless there is a reason, you don't stay in jail before the final conviction. So, but all of them are being persecuted uh, by by that, and they are also suffered block of assets, so they also foreclosure the assets. So there were severe consequences for the parties involved.
Wow, what a story. I will definitely look for some more materials to read on this. So if you have any materials, send me some links. I would love to read it more. Uh, and I and
It is
yeah,
called, it was called here Operação, that is Operation Zelotes. Zelotes, that was
Zelotes.
the nickname that they gave to this investigation.
Okay, is it by some of the judges or Zelotes? What is that?
Uh, every time that the federal police starts a big operation on certain sector, they use they create a nickname, like
Yeah.
car wash was very famous here, right? And they say that zelotes in Greek is a careful follower. So
Ah,
that's why they
okay.
use zelotes, because they investigated few judges that used to be influencers. So the other judges were the followers of these, let's say, dirty judges.
Right. And Anna, I'm conscious we're running out of time. Do you mind if we run some 10-15 minutes over, or you're running already?
No, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I just have a couple of questions left, at least from my part, and of course, I think nowadays we cannot go past Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 developments by OECD, and I wanted to ask your professional views on this. Where is it really going? Do you see that this is only the first step about this global minimum taxation and also taxation of those digital giants at the place of consumption? Those two huge principles now coming to those to the world. Do you see that this is just tryout for the largest companies, and then it's going to be implemented in for smaller companies as well, or is it going to stay like this most likely? What is
I
your
believe that,
prediction?
yes, I believe it's a big challenge to impose income tax on the digital economy. And we all note that to reach to the consensus, they needed to simplify much more what they were discussing in the first place. So if you look at the interim report and the 2018 interim report, and then the following reports, we used to have much more, let's say, complexity, especially in the Pillar 1 solution. And the final solution was, let's say, much simpler than what they were imagining. My personal view is that the point of looking at it's difficult to they are looking at the profits of the operation. But in the digital economy, most of the value not necessarily come from the profit, but out of the capital gain because you see a lot of digital companies operating years and years and years without any profits. So, and they are not, oh, so if they don't have profits, they are not creating value. On the contrary, you see companies operating in losses every year and increasing the market cap enormously. So here, first of all, we are looking at profits in a sector that not necessarily measure value creation through profits. They measure value creation by a number of users, by many things, not necessarily profits, in such a way that many of the unicorns, they've never seen an accounting profit in their financial statements. Secondly, they are not considering the entire profit. They are considering what is called the residual profit. So they are narrowing the profit by the residual profit. And after saying that, oh, I'm not going to get the entire profit, I'm going to get the residual profit, they say that it's 25% of the residual profit. So they narrow even more the amount of profits that will be splitted. In such a, and besides, it will not be something that each country per se will be able to calculate. It's something that the company needs to inform how much out of this 25% residual profit will go to each of the countries. So overall, it can be, you can have situations in which most countries will not see much difference in terms of revenues, because you are getting the profits in a sector that profits not what creates value, not necessarily what creates value. You are squeezing because you are using residual profit and 25% of residual profit, and you need to, and countries need to wait the company to say how much they are entitled to impose, on how much they are entitled to impose taxes based on this split among the various countries involved. So seems to me that it doesn't, not necessarily it's a final solution to get to impose income tax on the value creation by, and using the expression of BEPS, of value creation of the digital economy. And when we come to the Pillar 2 measures that are supplementing the Pillar 1 measures, because the Pillar 2 measures will not be implemented through a multilateral agreement, only the subject to tax will be implemented through a multilateral agreement, but rather through a model legislation that will come from the OECD. Not necessarily the Congress of each of the countries will accept the model as it is. So it may create discrepancies. That is exactly what the OECD is trying to avoid. We note that the OECD requires the countries to revoke the existing digital taxation measures, to implement Pillar 1 and 2, for Pillar 1 and 2 be the only measures that a particular country has in terms of digital economy. But anyway, even though I acknowledge the importance of all this work, even Brazil is one of the countries that is among the 130 something countries that are supporting the consensus. But I'm a bit skeptical on the actual implementation and the final outcome, whether it will be significant for most countries, or it will be significant just for few countries and irrelevant for the other countries?
Right. I'm actually fully with you in this sentiment, because if we look at the OECD guidelines that they released just before Christmas, I feel that those huge companies with 20 billion turnover for this digital economy are just a small portion, and the smaller countries will not get too much out of this. And secondly, if we look at pillar two, then this global corporate taxation, then I believe that also 750 million turnover is something that at least does not resolve one of the problems that this system is trying to resolve, because the most of the offshore companies will not fall under these thresholds. And the big question is what will happen to these offshores. And still, I guess we are left with no solution to that currently, even though OECD is doing a lot of this lately. But as all my podcasts, they end up with a big question for you personally. What would be your answer to the meaning of life for you? What is the purpose of it all?
Oh, very good question. Very good question, by the way. Uh, I believe that the meaning of life is not only find our own happiness, but make other people happy as well, make good for other people. And this is something that I really believe and I really practice, not only helping, let's say, not only helping institutions that deal with poverty. There is a lot in Brazil, but also in my day-by-day practice, not being practicing really the values that I believe. And also, one of the things that I see that many people don't give the proper importance, that I think it's very important for me, is to enjoy people while they are with you, while they are alive, other than simply crying and having when they die. I mean, and this is something that I practice a lot. So we try to be as much as possible with my parents, with my in-laws, with the friends, with people we care about, because I think this COVID phase showed that not only life is short, that we take so much time with what is urgent that sometimes we forget what is important. So we need to give more importance to what is important, not only to what is urgent in our lives.
Well said, Anna. Ladies and gentlemen, Anna Utumi, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate that, and I got myself a lot of new thoughts and inspiration. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on both personal and business and taxation level. So I hope our listeners will get some new thoughts and inspiration too. So. With that, I just hope to meet you in person soon.
Very good. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really enjoyed being here with you. Thank you.
I enjoyed very much too. Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Goodbye.
Okay, bye.